We have some massive news coming out of the 2023 NFL Draft regarding defensive tackle Jalen Carter, who is the consensus #1 overall pick. Apparently, an arrest warrant was issued for him because of the fatal crash that occurred on January 15th, involving Chandler LaCroix, a staff member of Georgia, as well as Devin Willock, a player of Georgia. The two passed away on January 15th. And according to the arrest warrant, and I'll quote it here, the evidence demonstrated that both vehicles switched between lanes, drove in the center turn lane, drove in opposite lanes of travel, overtook other motorists, and drove at high rates of speed in an apparent attempt to outdistance each other. Basically, Jalen Carter, there's an arrest warrant issued because of him reckless driving and racing. So he was directly involved with that accident. He was directly one of the two parties, right, within that accident occurring. The report right now is that Jalen Carter was at the scene right when it happened, and then he drove off. He left the scene. And he came back 2 hours later. So right now, that is kind of what's being reported. And then he lied to the cops when he got back. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution's reported that Carter first told police he was nearly a mile away when the fatal crash happened, then said he was behind the other vehicle and could see its taillights, and then he said he was alongside the car when it crashed. Now, keep in mind, they police did their investigations. They looked through all the footage they could find, and they were able to conclude that the two cars were racing. I'm gonna make the assumption that these cars were racing for a couple of minutes, right? So there's a good chance that there's footage of them racing, right? You can't go far nowadays without being caught on camera. It's very, very difficult. And again, Jalen Carter right now is in some trouble. His draft stock could definitely fall because of this. The Henry Ruggs situation that happened, I think makes teams, at least think about these type of things, because this isn't the first time Jalen Carter was racing. And I should have said racing, but back in September, he was ticketed for speeding. He was going 89 miles per hour in a 45. That was the first sign. Here's the second sign. I think teams are going to think about this going forward, right? The Henry Ruggs situation happened, but there were signs before that. His girlfriend had posted videos on their YouTube channel. Now, that's been deleted. That's been removed. But there were videos on the YouTube channel of them speeding, right? And I think teams are going to think about these situations. Now, here's the thing with Jalen Carter, right? We all know the prospect, the football player that this guy is. He is easily the best player in this class. There's no questions about it. Todd McShay and Mel Kiper reported this, that there's some character issues there. There's some concerns. Now, I wouldn't say racing is a character concern or issue, right? I don't put racing with that. It's a stupid decision to do, right? To me, a character concern is something wrong with the individual guy. Maybe he's uncoachable. Maybe he's a dick. Maybe he's an asshole, right? Those type of things are character related. Speeding isn't. Speeding is just a stupid decision. And I do hope that Jalen Carter learns his lesson in this instance. And I do hope that Jalen Carter realizes never to do this again. It's just not worth it. If you want to drive your car fast, go on an open road somewhere where it's legal to do that, right? Go out and find that straight road where it's past that you can race here, right? Whatever it is, if you want to drag race your Jeep Trackhawk, go do it. But do it legally where you're not putting yourself in danger. ESPN went ahead and wrote this article, and I want to kind of just go through it because they really break it down. And I think it's an interesting article just to kind of go over. We'll skip and kind of go through it in different parts. Obviously, the police, the arrest warrant was issued for Jalen Carter. This was announced Wednesday that it was for reckless driving and racing. And the Atlanta Journal-Constitution was the first one to report it. Try looking at the initial article. It's behind a paywall. Obviously, it's how a lot of these sites kind of make their money. Now, one of the interesting things right now, if you guys don't know, is the NFL Combine is currently started, right? Like they've started the weigh-ins and the physicals and those kind of things. Do note, Carter was supposed to speak today, and I don't think he's going to speak at this point. So at this point, I think Jalen Carter will probably wait it out, wait a couple of days, and then maybe tomorrow, the day after, he'll come out and he'll make his statement. But let's just get into this. Obviously, we know the evidence demonstrated that both vehicles switched between lanes. They drove in the center turn lane. They were basically racing. Police investigators determined that alcohol impairment, racing, reckless driving, and speed were significant factors to the crash. A toxicology report indicated that LaCroix's blood alcohol concentration was 0.197, more than twice the legal limit in Georgia at the time of the crash, according to police. Here's one of the parts I want to clarify. Jalen Carter was not drunk, right? It was determined that he was not under the influence. He left the crash site for 2 hours, but he came back 2 hours later. 2 hours isn't enough to go from 0.197 to literally not being detected, right? I don't, at least in my opinion, it is not long enough. The Ford Expedition that LaCroix was driving was going 104 miles per hour. According to documents, and this is kind of how they were able to figure it out, according to the documents and recordings of the 911 calls reviewed by the Journal-Constitution, at least 2 vehicles driven by Georgia football players had been at the scene, including the 2021 Jeep Trackhawk driven by Carter, who left the scene before police or emergency personnel arrived. And then you can see that Carter returned to the scene less than 2 hours later, according to the paper, which reported that he was asked by police whether he had been racing the vehicle that crashed. Documents reviewed by the Journal show that Carter first told police that he heard the crash from a nearby apartment complex, but then later told an officer that he had been driving both behind and besides the SUV driven by LaCroix. So again, he did lie to the police, right? First and foremost, he left the scene. I don't know if that in itself is a crime, leaving the scene. Came back 2 hours later, and then he lied, right? And I think that lying part of it would be technically a crime. Keep in mind, both of the things he's been charged with are misdemeanors, right? They're not felonies. He's not going to spend time behind bars. The only possible way Jalen Carter will spend time behind bars is if it was determined he was the one responsible for the accident. Even then, I think you have to prove that he was drunk, right? And he caused it, as opposed to 2 cars were racing, right? So again, with this entire situation, I don't think Jalen Carter is going to spend any time behind bars. That's my personal opinion. But you can also just go down the rest of this article, just a little bit left. The Journal-Constitution also obtained surveillance video footage from multiple downtown locations in Athens, Georgia, taken the night of the crash. The footage, which was also reviewed by police, shows 3 vehicles leaving the area at the same time: Carter's Jeep, LaCroix's Ford, and a 2029 Charger driven by Bulldogs linebacker Jamon Dumas Johnson. So there it is. So there's the very next car. There was 3 cars, as we mentioned. It was driven by the linebacker Jamon Dumas Johnson. Carter did deny racing to the officer, who observed no signs that the 310-pound defensive lineman had been drinking, according to the Journal-Constitution. Again, it's an entire unfortunate situation, right, with Jalen Carter racing and all this. And again, I think people want to kind of learn their lessons here. Don't drink and drive first and foremost. Don't race, even if you're sober, even if it's a clear ass day. Don't race. There's just no benefit to it. I know it's fun. Everyone loves to drive fast, but at the end of the day, it's unsafe, right? Police officers all around the country will tell you how unsafe it is, because they respond to these things all the time. All the time they see accidents because someone was texting, someone was driving drunk, someone was speeding. It's just not worth it. Now, obviously, I'll wrap this video up here with kind of talking about Jalen Carter and his draft stock, because I think that's a big one. Right now, every Bears fan wants him. Every Cardinals fan, most Cardinal fans want him. Most fans want him, right? If you're picking 6 as the Lions or 7 as the Raiders or 8 as the Falcons, you want Jalen Carter. Now, a lot of people are going to hope that he kind of slips a little bit because of this. Let's just be honest, right? People want him to slip because he is the #1 player in this class. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Jalen Carter is still going to be one of the top 2 or 3 players taken. I think the one question mark will be, when Mel Kiper and Todd McShay reported that this guy has actual character concerns. That's the one and only thing that can actually have this guy's stock fall. Because again, racing isn't character concerns. Those are 2 completely different things. If this guy's uncoachable, if this guy's an asshole or whatever it is, and he doesn't get along with his coaches, his value, his stock value at that point could fall, but that may not be something we ever know, right? We got the report, but we may never get an example of that. Again, in my opinion, Jalen Carter, if I'm picking, is still the #1 player on my board. This doesn't change anything for me. It is a stupid thing, and I would question him about it at the combine, right? He'll obviously do the interviews with teams. Every team's going to bring this up. He has to be ready for it. I'm bringing it up as well. If you're watching this video, Jalen Carter, sell that track hawk and stop racing, man. It's not worth it. Let me know what you guys think about this entire situation. Comment below, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.